as you have heard, I think Shuki is a prolific researcher in a number of fields. He is also a successful entrepreneur with 3 different companies. But his real passion, his real love, is teaching, and is to spend time with his students, postdocs, grad students, as well as undergrad students. So our next 2 panels will be about teaching and mentoring, how Shuki is as a teacher, as an advisor. And I'm going to start by showing one of the first one of the 2 videos that Michael and Andrew made from the class, the IST4 class that you have heard so much about. We picked a few snippets from the class, and we'll show it here.
This is the first time I teach in the IST building, and actually the first lecture. So I want to share with you how it looks when we did the groundbreaking in 2007. And I don't know if you recognize everyone there. I'm sure you don't recognize me because I typically don't dress up this way, but I try to match the appearance. So I had this gray sweatshirt and still dark. And if you look at the picture, you will notice that my hat is a bit different. Do you see that? Okay, that's very important. And since we are recording the class, there's a camera right there. I thought maybe I should bring my hard hat from the ceremony, so at least we will get it on tape that here I am, where the parking lot was with a hat. Guys, don't be so serious. This is just Caltech. Typically, they prefer solve everything. They are motivated. Their eyes are still big. They didn't take Phys 1, You know, the thing you need to learn is that when you are relaxed, you do much better. You know, so if figure out a way how to approach things in a more relaxed way. It's easier said than done, right, David? He's always relaxed. But it makes a big difference if you're relaxed or whether you have to turn in a homework set or understand the concept in 10 minutes. You know, that's not good. Someone once told me, how come we never see your graduate students? They don't do anything. Jing? And I tell them that I don't care what they are doing. They can have fun the whole day. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not about whether your bio cycle is that you work from 8 to 5, or if you work from 10 p.m. till 4 a.m. Or maybe you cannot work more than an hour continuously. I don't care. Maybe the best ideas you have is when you are riding a bike. At the end of the day, the key is to have an encounter with the problem you're working on. So then you can do other things and things will happen. But definitely this is not a very productive way to make progress in graduate school or anywhere else. This is Judge Harlan Fiske Stone. He was the Chief Justice of the US during the Second World War. Amazing guy. And that's his father. So, of course, Judge of the Supreme Court, every morning when he woke up, he wanted his son, Marshall, to also be a judge. That's also my dreams when when my kids were younger. I wake up in the morning and I see them doing something similar to what I do. That's not a good idea to have those type of dreams. Actually, none of my kids is doing what I'm doing. Well, they tell jokes, but they don't professionally. So Marshall went to Harvard with the idea of getting a law degree, But he took a math class and fell in love with mathematics. And the rest of his is history. He became a professor of mathematics. So if you are here and you feel that what you want to do is go to law school, then go to law school. If you want to be a professional musician, be a professional musician. If you want to be Sandra Law, be Sandra Law. You can do whatever you want. You're just here to taste what's going on here in science and engineering, not necessarily you made a decision. You are just here to taste it and always remember it. The other thing is you always have time. You're still young, so you can explore. I think it's a wonderful statement. He's saying there are two ways of thinking about painting, how not to do it and how to do it. How to do it with much drawing and little color. How not to do it with much color and little drawing. So I think it's true in many domains. Try to do things that include drawing and not overly colored. And I love also the second statement. That's what was driven him. He said, in both figure and landscape, I want to get to the point where people say of my work, that man feels deeply, that man feels keenly. And that's, I think, the most important thing in what we do at the end. So I will stop here, and I will see you on Thursday. Thank you.
All right, so let's welcome the first panel on teaching and mentoring. Alex, Suleiman, and Massimo, and let me see, Kevin, and Mike.
All right, so this is the panel on teaching and mentoring. And the first panelist is Kevin Foltz, who was also my lab mate when I was here.
Yeah. So thank you, Massimo. It's good to see all the faces again here. It's been a long time. Can you hear me? Okay. This is teaching and mentoring. This is one of Shuki's things that he helped me with a lot, was making sure that when I gave a talk, there was a microphone. Because I have trouble projecting my voice. And he was definitely helpful for getting me to project better and allowing people. Yeah, that's another problem. I need to do something about that maybe, but that's a little harder. But yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about teaching. And this is I took Shuki's course, CNS 188, A and B, but I don't remember much about the courses, but what I do remember was the LT calculator. And this was a project that apparently he did this every year, and the project was basically to create a web page that implemented a linear threshold gate. And you could basically define the gate, do the inputs, outputs, and all that. But the thing I found most fascinating was trying to minimize the weights of the gate. And the idea is you can define a gate that has a certain function with any number of different weights that produce the same output for the same inputs. But you'd like to get them really small, because I think one of Shuki's ideas is make it as simple as possible, right, and then solve that. And anyone can do it with big weights, but can you shrink them down to make it really small and compact? And maybe there's some practical application, fitting more on a chip or something, but it was just a nice mathematical problem for me. But I found that the way he approached it, I thought was great, because a lot of teaching until I took Shuki's course was pretty much like, we're going to start here, you know this, and we're going to go step by step to here. And I'm going to teach you how to get from here to here, and it's all going to be very structured and digestible, small steps, and it's a linear path. But this was not. It was just like, hey, see what you can do. See if you can minimize the weights. And, sorry, my voice. A combination of maybe jet lag and talking to so many people today. I'm losing my voice already. But it was very much an open-ended problem. And I don't know that it's been solved even to this day. So he basically just kind of embedded this unsolved problem into his course. whereas everything else is just kind of like, here, we're going to tell you how things are, and then you're going to repeat it back to us in a test. I mean, he had the test, and it was pretty basic stuff in comparison. But I think the thing that is great is that Shuki was really good, and I think from the videos you just saw, you could tell that he was tapping into people's passions. It wasn't about the technical stuff. It wasn't about being smart. It was about finding your passion, what drives you. And I kind of think of it as like, what are the things you're going to do when you should be doing something else? Like, those are your passions. Those are the things you're going to find time to do. And so these open-ended problems invite passion. The closed-ended problems, it's like, okay, you solve the problem, you're done. What's next? And I remember he told a story about a student like this who would come to him and just say, all right, what do I do next? And he'd be like, well, I'm not going to tell you. Like, what do you think? And it was, at the time, I was just starting off, so it was very instructional to me, the idea that grad school is very different than other school, where you have to come up with the problems. You have to find an approach. You have to test it. You know, the easy stuff is solving the problem. It's kind of that larger picture of structuring the problems yourself. And I think the LG Calculator project was the one thing I remember because of that. It was open-ended. It invited us to think. It really, got my passion going. I mean, I set up a version of this on my home server recently because I thought, what? Does that thing still work? No. And sure enough, yeah, it was great. But it was a lot of fun. That was a fun course, and I think it really stood out as different and unique and igniting that passion, which I think is the key to good research. So thank you, Shuki. It was great.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. I want to give you some context. I gave it as a final project, and there was a competition at the end of the class. This is not IST4. This is the previous graduate classes. So people did pretty well, and every now and then someone won the competition. Then came Kevin. Kevin built this LT calculator, and he won in his year. And then every year that I did it after that, a number of years, whoever won the competition, I asked Kevin, that was already not here, to compete against the current winner. And Kevin always won. Now, he won?
We had a good one.
He had a good one.
I remember Suleiman was determined to beat me.
Just in the context of what we talked about before, Kevin, I know you have a very important job in the government. And by the way, he was recruited before he was graduating. They called me. I got scared. Not saying anymore. But I thought maybe you can go and raise $100 million because now NVIDIA needs someone to make the weights a bit smaller in all of their trillion weights. So maybe you can do something here.
Yeah, I've been meaning to write a paper about this at some point, so maybe it's time, right? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next panelist is Suleiman.
Is this on? Is that on?
It's on. Just keep talking.
Just keep talking. I don't hear myself coming through the speak. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's better. All right, it's coming through. So, just for the record, I want to say that when doing the slides for this presentation, I said I'm not going to do slides. I just want to talk. So I emailed Charles and I said, Charles, can you put together a slide that just like has my name and my title and things? And Charles said, sure, I can do that. So I haven't seen this slide. So for all I know, it says Suleiman, most annoying former lab mate. And I have no idea what. But so when I first got the email to talk about on this teaching and mentoring, my first thought was, like, did I do teaching and mentoring when I was at Caltech? Why am I being asked to talk? And it's like, do you guys know it's been like 23 years? I don't remember a single thing about what I was doing back then. then I was obviously educated into that fact that we're talking about Shuki's teaching and mentoring, which made a lot more sense. And I said, oh, well, now I can talk for like 3 hours. So that's... So I got the call to come to Caltech in 1999. And it was, of all the schools that I'd applied to, it was the only one that had you come out before you actually were formally accepted, which was very nerve-wracking for me. Caltech had kind of always been the top of my list, and this was March of 1999. And so I flew out, not really knowing what to expect. Mark actually met me at the airport and picked me up from the airport, which was very cool. And so then we're driving to Pasadena, and it's taking a very, very long time to get to Pasadena. And you know, I kept asking Mark, like, why is it taking, should it be taking this long? And Mark said, you know, no, it's, I went the wrong way. And it turned out he accidentally got on 405 South instead of 405 North. So we looped around to the 110 and then got stuck in traffic. So this whole time I'm thinking, this was so intentional so that Mark could, like, you know, grill me or like find out more about me. And I thought this until probably like 3 years later when he did the exact same thing after picking me up from the airport. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is just Mark, you know, doing But the thing that stood out to me was how positively Mark spoke of Shuki during that drive. And I am a very inquisitive person. I asked a lot of questions. And then the next day, I think it was the next day, I met up with all the other people from the lab, Paul, and I think Vincent was there, and maybe even Lee Howe, and I don't, you know, I of course know everybody so well. I don't remember who exactly was there on that very first day. But the thing that was consistently was that everybody just said so many amazing things about being in Shuki's lab and having him as an advisor. And you know, by the end of it, I even asked, like, is there anything negative you guys can say? And nobody could say anything that was negative. So I said, okay, so it's really going to be one of two things. So either this is all true and Shuki is absolutely amazing, so I win, or you get a lot of money under the table for saying nice things about Shuki. So I win it that way too. So whichever way it is, that sounds good, right? So there was the next day that I actually got to meet Shuki himself. I hadn't met him yet up to that point. And it was, you know, it was then that I truly started to understand that what everybody had been saying is indeed absolutely true. Just the, you know, the way of speaking, everything, Shuki, that you said was just, I mean, I hung on every word you said, and you have a very powerful presence. The way you speak, it is, it's, you command respect, and I loved every second of getting to meet you and learning about you. And by the end, I was like, this is where I want to be, 100%. Like, I want to come to Caltech. And you know, when obviously I got accepted, it was, you know, one of the happiest days, and it was wonderful. So I came here in August of 1999. I had been, you know, my background up to that point was, you know, I'd been working in the private sector for 4.5 years, and so I'm here at Caltech, and my sort of brain works in a way of like trying to find ways of making things more efficient. How can we make things more productive? So I'm like this naive 20-year-old. I was 20 years old when I came here. Like, so I mean, why should Shuki even listen to a single thing I'm ever going to say at that point? And I don't know how long it was, but it was at least probably within the first 3 months. I remember going to Shuki and I said, Shuki, we need to buy laptops for every single person in the lab. You know, everybody's using these desktops, and I was going to lay out all this case as to why it was needed, and we were going to get laptops. And Shuki said, sounds good, sure, let's do it. And I remember thinking, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. He actually listened to what I was saying. And it was a similar thing. We had another one a little bit later about getting a color laser printer, which, you know, back in 2000 was a very big deal, you know, not like today. And then I remember, you know, we're getting ready to do these purchases. I went to him and I said, so just a little snag or something I want to do differently. Can I pay for these myself and then expense them so that I can get all the miles? And again, Shuki was like, yes, we can do that. And I was like, wow, okay. My point with all this is, you know, I mean, obviously since my Caltech days, I've I did not go into academia. I went to the private sector. I've led a lot of teams, small and large, startups, multinational corporations I've been involved with. And the thing that when sort of people ask, what is kind of your most important advice or what you try to do with teams, and I say for me, the most important thing that I can do is to create or foster an environment that allows people to do their absolute best work and to feel comfortable doing so. And that's what Shuki was doing with me, I think, and always did. It's just, did he actually, care about these things that I want to do? But he encouraged me, and he supported me all the way, and just it made an environment that was extremely wonderful. And I had an amazing time for the years that I was at Caltech. At my company, we do a survey, an annual survey, where we ask all employees to fill out things around satisfaction and and just kind of various aspects around the company. And my team generally scores very high in two areas. One is satisfaction with their jobs, and the other is loyalty. And it's something that I get asked from time to time from other executives or other other managers, where why is that? Like, what is the key? And recently, I was having a conversation with one of our vice presidents who was thinking about starting an executive MBA, and I have an MBA as well. And so he wanted my thoughts, and I said, I'll give you my thoughts certainly. I said, but why do you want to do an MBA? And he listed the usual reasons. And one of the things he said was learning about management. And I said, I'll tell you a little secret. I did my MBA at UCLA, but the place that I learned the most about managing teams and dealing with people is not at UCLA, where I was doing my MBA. He said, oh, where was that? I said, it was at Caltech. And he said, really? Caltech had a business program? I said, no, Caltech did not have a business program. I said, everything that, the most important lessons I learned from my advisor, Shuki. And, it's everything that, that I did learn from you. I've kept all these last 20 plus years. And I just want to say, Shuki, you are somebody I hold in extreme high regard. In fact, I can count on one hand the number of people I have tremendous respect for. Two of them are my parents, and and you're on that same hand. So I just want to say thank you for everything you did for me while I was here, and for being who you are. And congratulations, and have an amazing, wonderful retirement. You deserve it, and thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Suleiman. I learned from you more than you learned from me. And you taught me many things beyond what you can imagine. And you have a better imagination than any person I know. Because I remember vividly a group meeting. I think Massimo was writing on the board. And Massimo starts writing very much at the top. And I'm telling you something you didn't notice. And he was filling the board, and at that time, group meetings, people had to say what they are writing on the board. And as he was getting toward the end, you told him there is a typo in this area, and I was so impressed by that. Thank you, Suleiman. Thank you. And it's wonderful to see, well-deserved, how well you are doing. That's amazing, amazing. I'm very proud of you.
Very good. So next panelist is Michael.
Hi, everyone. First of all, congratulations, Shuki, on such an amazing and a beautiful day. I'm Michael Langberg. I'm from the University of Buffalo. And what I thought to do, very briefly, I have only 2 minutes or 3 minutes, is to just describe my first meeting with Shuki and my first impressions of Shuki, which I think were pretty accurate. So I joined as a postdoc at Caltech, the computer science department in 2003, thanks to Chris Umans. He was my host. And when I arrived, I wasn't affiliated at all with Shuki's group. And I did my PhD in Israel. Shuki's from Israel. It didn't take long. And I heard about Shuki. And I just sent him a kind of introduction email without any expectations or anything. And I was very surprised that Shuki immediately replied, immediately invited me to sort of one-on-one lunch at the Athenaeum. And, you know, I'm a fresh postdoc, and lunch was very, very nice, of course, and I viewed Shuki then, and I view Shuki now as kind of a model for success. And I really remember the impression that kind of Shuki holds, and we saw this throughout the entire day, the best of two worlds. On one hand, he was very, very passionate on anything he talks about, extremely inspirational, enthusiastic. It's just a pleasure to sort of absorb that charisma. But on the other hand, he was very modest, very intellectually modest, extremely respectful, and extremely empathetic to the person that's sort of sitting in front of him. And I think that combination, it kind of generates a very inviting atmosphere. And indeed, Shuki invited me to sort of, come to the group meeting, meet the group. If you like it, stay. If you don't like it, go. It was very, very kind of flexible. And I think it's safe to say that the decision to join these group meetings and to be part of Shuki's group and to be impacted by Shuki's influence, it had a significant and major change in my career trajectory. And for that, Shuki, I really want to thank you. Thank you very much. And so, yeah, since then, I think it's been a joy to work with Shuki and to know Shuki. And he's been a close mentor ever since. And I really very much appreciate that. Thank you again, Shuki.
Okay, so I'll go next. I was going to go last, but there is a little change. So quick prologue for my contribution. So I want to tell you a little bit my story. I came here in 97 I was an undergraduate and I was visiting. So basically Shuki was gracious to give me a little project and let me join his group. And I spent here like 6 months doing a little project. And I worked hard, and at the end, Shuki basically said, why don't you stay and become a graduate student and join my group? And I was so stupid. I was just too stupid. I said, no. And Shuki was surprised. Probably he was thinking, is he serious? And yeah, I said, yeah, I want to go and work in industry. I want to go to work in Italy in a company. It was a good job, nothing super exciting, right? Shuki said, he looked at me, he smiled, and said, okay. So that was it. I went back. I was working in a company, and then I think maybe 6 months, 9 months. And then my phone rang. And it was Shuki. I still, to this day, I have no idea how he got hold of my number in Italy. But he's a resourceful man. So he called me over the phone, and somebody mentioned that he's very nice, very kind, but he's also a no-nonsense person. So the conversation was very brief. Was like, and I haven't talked to him for like 9 months. And conversation very brief. How are you? And then after like 5 seconds, so are you ready to come back? And I said yes. And so that was the most important phone call in my life. So I thank you very much for that. Thank you so much. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about teaching. So I took 188 before I guess IST4 there was 188. And in particular, the way he was teaching through the homeworks So this is a very bad copy of homework 1 that I dig up. And like questions were like, can you prove for Boolean function properties of associativity, commutativity, and distributivity? Pretty basic stuff, right? So you look at this, oh, I can do this, easy peasy, no problem. This is going to be an easy class, right? So that's homework 1. Okay. Homework 2 and 3, okay, now we're getting a little bit more serious, right? So it's becoming more challenging. You start working hard. And some of the problems can be really hard. So typically it was structured in the way that problem number 1 is easy, number 2 is a little bit more difficult, number 3 is a little bit more difficult, and then it gets harder and harder. So that's the way he structured it. Okay, you go through that. And then you get to homework number 5, where one of the question is, can you say something about the shaded region? And so is he serious? What do you mean say something? There is no question there. It's basically an open problem, right? So you can spend weeks on it. You can spend months, right? So everybody was trying to work very hard to impress him to like say something about, what are the best bounds that you can come up with. And I think you even promised a PhD thesis at some point if somebody was answering correctly. And then there is, of course, the LT calculator competition that Kevin mentioned, where we had to divide into teams and come up with solutions. But unfortunately, you can't read it, but there is also something like you can get some points from the most appealing design, the most visually appealing design. So, and he definitely appreciates art. And so, what we can learn about this, I think one of his philosophies for teaching is, first you have to encourage your student. How do you encourage them? You give them easy stuff in the beginning. Like let them know that they can do things. And then little bit by little you challenge them. You make them more difficult. And then, the open problem, he was just testing us. He wanted to see how do we reason about things, right? So even if the problem didn't have a solution, but he wanted to see, can this person reason about the problem itself? And then collaborate. Collaboration is very important. So in his class, there was also opportunity to create teams and do things together. So that was really a very rewarding experience.
I'll just start talking like once Charles set it up. So for me, I just trying to say it from my perspective. I did my PhD in Technion, and it was very technical discussions every time. It was very it's equivalent to United States probably for a large state university. So we just never sway from the topic, right? So we basically all the time discussed purely technical stuff and stuff related to your area. And when I came, actually, what really surprised me, audacity to just talk about anything, right? And it's just breadth of topic, none of the topics was really off the limit. So basically, again, what we learned, audacity, even people started to had background in coding and worked on biology, right, on other way around. So it was really surprising. So the second was truly cross-disciplinary approaches that people use some coding theory in places that, or some other types of mathematics in a place that really people didn't do it before, right? And even audacity to think about biology from more Boolean algebra perspective, right? Trying to bring structure and trying to describe it. And for me, it was just mind-blowing. The second, like again, I'm just lost, and all of the topics already been discussed, but delight and personal connection, enthusiasm, and collegiality. So it's many people talked about group meeting. Unfortunately, kind of my laptop didn't work. I wanted to show some pictures that kind of from the group meeting. It was really, really amazing experience. And I think many speakers before talked about this. And again, like topics that discussed were so broad and so surprising. So people could discuss like viruses on Mars and how they will evolve. And it's just like, and it discussed like a pretty deep kind of, I probably lost them after 10 minutes, but it was kind of really amazing. So again, like if you look on actually where are people working now, alumni, right? So we looked at Suleiman working for human rights, and some people working in biology, people working in so many, many different things. So again, like demonstrate audacity, like paper from my colleague, Matt Cook, who basically wrote this paper about 2 neurons to ride a bicycle. And I was like talking to him, and I was just like, yeah, really? Like, and it was actually in one of the new RIPs. And audacity was like, actually, the title of the paper is proven. We have not ruled out that 1 neuron can ride a bike. And I said, like, it's kind of like this aspiration. It's like kind of with me all my life, right? So it's just, you can actually do it, right? And yeah, again, I talked about descriptive biology, right? So it's a really like attempt to do really, really big things. And it's what I learned from Shuki is like how to pick up problems that are meaningful, right? So if you basically do it, you know, it's kind of, you can do really big. And again, like from Mark, some of the slides, you know, he was talking about biological circuits, and he even drew them like the same way as this like type of animal, right? So again, like I'm really sorry, like I couldn't show it. And just last thing, like Shuki was like so supportive to students. So basically, as Suleiman mentioned, you cannot like even think about some things that to get Shuki angry at you, right? And like so supportive, like just unlimited support. So when Mark, and again, like I have this picture of the structure, that I kind of came to one group meeting and I saw like a huge structure on the table. And Mark said like, oh, I worked on this like 3 days. And like, you know, he's starting to describe like different angles that he was putting in. And I said like, if I was his advisor, I said like, he's in real trouble, right? So like Shuki will come and he will just say like, go back to your topic that you're supposed to work, right? And Shuki came and that actually kind of, we started discussion. He was so happy. And I kind of knew that Shuki might not have very happy about this, but this was like, kind of from his attitude, it was impossible to say, like, you know, he was so supportive and just like, you know, and it's kind of probably was amazing science in there, right? So Shuki was saw it and basically let it go, right? So let it develop. And another kind of example of support for students, so some of us actually spent quite a lot of time in Caltech, right? So it's, and I have a picture in my laptop of timer and cross out, so we never like, felt that some clock is ticking, right? So you go to many places like after in your life, right? You start clock is ticking, right? So you need to do stuff like really, really fast and make impact, otherwise you just lose, right? It's never was a case for Shuki, right? So everybody thought like it's plenty of time to do kind of whatever they need to do, and some people actually took advantage of this, and they, in the end, they had like amazing careers. So thank you, Shuki, again. We learned a lot from you.
And I think we concluded with the video.
Yeah, I'll play the video. All right, so I think now we're going to play the second segment of the teaching video, and then David will lead a undergrad and Avery panel.
Leibniz. Who heard about Leibniz? He's a guy that Newton didn't like. But he did many things in addition to calculus, okay? But Leibniz made a mistake. It's okay, he's human. You know, it should be an 8 there. He wrote a 4, but the summation is fine, so the TA gave him full credit on that. He was a scholar, so he really tried to understand if anyone did it before him. And he exchanged letters with many people all over the world. For example, he had a person that he knew that was on a mission in China. and he exchanged letters with him about this topic, and he told him, listen, there is this thing. You know what this thing is? Anyone recognizes that? Looks beautiful. Do you know what this thing is? Wow. Yes. Wonderful. What is your name? Brandon? How do you know about it? Wonderful. You are not pre-frosh. No? But you were pre-frosh. Where did you go to high school? New Jersey. East Coast, good schools, I can tell you. No one in California knows what teaching is. And it's true in everything. The key is that we always look for languages so that it will be easy for us. In general, scientists, good scientists are very lazy. I always tell it to students that work with me, and they get scared that maybe I will tell it to their parents. And they made the choice to be in science, and here is someone telling them that scientists are lazy. We are lazy, but we are extremely curious, and we want to understand things. So we try to understand it by having some simple way to understand it. Why? Because we are lazy. If we need to prove something or understand something by writing 100 pages, then maybe it's Fermat's last theorem. But in general, this is not the case. Okay? I always believe one should put more weight on the internal satisfaction than the external validation. So directly from Germany, Hanover, with a stamp of Leibniz, we got a special delivery of Leibniz cookies. And I had a choice because there is an original one. And I decided to go with a chocolate one, which came out 8 years later, 1889, I think, because I know the Caltech students. So I will ask David to pass it around. And by the way, there is a box of 9 in each, so I think it should be fine. We have a number of boxes. Each box has 9. You can leave a box, and it will gravitate. And then if anyone doesn't get, I think we should be fine, because we have more than 100. By the way, last night I couldn't resist it, and I had 1 cookie. And as a result, the whole night I was dreaming about zeros and ones because of Leibniz. So enjoy the cookies. So if one day someone will ask you, do you know who Leibniz is? Tell them, of course, it's a cookie.
Here is the David, the TA, who are handing out the cookies.
I wish I had brought my sweater and bought some Leibniz cookies. Wonderful. Okay, so this panel is going to focus on undergraduate student interactions. Shuki has had a lot of impact on undergraduate students, ranging from undergraduate research, taking and TAing ISD4, and living with Shuki during his time as a faculty in residence in Avery. So these are all represented on the panel. We had a lot of fun preparing for this panel in honor of Shuki. So we spent time learning PowerPoint animations. I'm going to let each panelist introduce themselves. Caleb, can you start us off?
All right. Thank you, David. And wow, it's really fun to be back at Caltech. It's been a while for me. And It's especially great to be back at Caltech because I now live in DC, and I don't know if you all know what's been happening in DC lately, but it's been raining a lot. You're here in paradise. I'm scheduling walking my dog around the weather forecast. I think you all thought I was going to say something else about DC. Yeah, so Shuki, we brought jokes, a few. We tried. But yeah, before I go on, I just want to draw your attention to the word cloud that we made here. Because a bunch of words kept coming up over and over and over again as we were talking about this, and we wanted to make sure we didn't miss any of them, even though we've got all these thoughts about you, Shuki. And so, so far, I think I've worked in a few. I've worked in WoW, Paradise. We've got Comic Sans all over here. I've got one lame joke, I think, so yeah. In preparing for this panel also, we were trying to figure out how long Shuki and Anat lived in Avery. It turns out that they only lived in Avery for 2 years. We were all pretty convinced that they lived there for like 5, 6, 7 years. It was very confusing. I think that tells you about the impact that they had on all of us who had the privilege of living with them in Avery. And so when I was a Caltech student here, Caltech was using this tagline, the world's best playground for math and science. I don't know if anyone remembers that still. I think Shuki really embodies the play part of that better than almost anyone I can think of. So yeah, like David said, we're gonna have fun. We're gonna try to keep it short because we know we're all over time already. But yeah, I think I just want to highlight, I think many people have already done it, but the boundless enthusiasm, the unfailing optimism, I think that's one of the core memories that I have of my interactions with Shuki. So yeah, next I want to bring Christina up.
So my name is Christina Lee Yu, and I was an undergraduate at Caltech in computer science class of 2011. So I lived in Avery, and I had the fortune of having Shuki and Anat as mentors in the dorm for my freshman year, and they continued to keep up the relationship with us through the years, having us over to their place for dinner, contributing and participating in house events, or even meeting up for tea or meal dates years after. I actually found in my email a message to Shuki and Anat with the subject title, "Call me when you get into your office in the morning, thanks," and a blink body. So there's no text in the body. And you might think that this was maybe for an emergency, but it actually was just related to a dorm event we were planning. And you can see how gracious Shuki was in the response. It goes to show how little formality we felt in reaching out to them and how available they made themselves to us even after they moved out. I think, looking back, I'm kind of embarrassed how little us undergrads understood the other demands on a faculty's life. But I also had the fortune of taking IST4 with Shuki in my sophomore year. I'm currently now an assistant professor at Cornell in Operations Research and Information Engineering. Intellectually, I have been influenced by Shuki's appreciation for simplicity, attitude of pursuing joy and wonder, and his childlike fun and curiosity towards learning. But perhaps the deepest impact Shuki has had on me is by the example of his life, especially in the backdrop of the stereotype of high-pressure, overachieving culture of academia, which Caltech undergrads very keenly feel. Caltech undergrads are stressed all the time. But Shuki has always felt like a breath of fresh air in terms of his holistic perspective towards life and people. And his example has encouraged me that it's possible to be an academic that enjoys my job, enjoys my family. Shuki always talked about his family during class. He showed up as his full self with all that he loves, rather than segmenting between the academic Shuki and the personal Shuki. And for me, as a woman in academia, I've at times felt the tension between career ambitions, personal life, or family desires. But seeing Shuki's example early on has always helped me remember that I don't have to run the rat race. My value and success is not determined by external validation. I can just pursue what I love, both on the work and family front, and things will work itself out. So I believe it's largely due to Shuki's example that I've been able to fully enjoy the academic life alongside having 2 kids, and we're expecting a third during my time as an assistant professor. I picked a particularly silly photo of us here that I know Shuki would enjoy. So spend any amount of time with Shuki, and you will remember what is most important in life, and you will rediscover what you love.
Hello, my name is Jane Bay. I was an undergrad at Caltech from 2008 to 2012, so class of 2012. And I remember distinctly my first class at Caltech. I won't name which class it was, but I remember the instructor walking in, and before he said hello, he just like started writing on the board, and we were just like frantically, trying to scribble what he was writing on the board on the notes. And that was kind of my expectation, and what Caltech does in terms of classes. It was you go in and there's just like a lot of information that's thrown on you that you're expected to learn. So it was really surprising when spring term came and I enrolled in ISD4 that Shuki was teaching, and suddenly there was this class. He brings up Comic Sans presentations. He cracks jokes, and it was a breath of fresh air seeing a class that was enjoyable as well as engaging, interesting, and knowledgeable. So that really impacted me a lot in terms of you can also learn this way. Class can be fun, and all the homeworks were also very intended towards learning in the manner. And I think the previous panel did a really good job at explaining that. And so that compelled me to apply to be a TA. So I was a freshman, and I emailed Shuki saying like, I really enjoyed your class. If you have openings next year, I would be loved to TA. And obviously at that time, it's very unclear how many people will enroll. But Shuki emailed me back saying, sure, like I don't know if I can have another TA, but next year I'll let you know. And he actually didn't forget, so he emailed me back the next year saying like, oh, you were interested in being a TA, can you send me your transcript, and let's see if you can be a TA. And I enjoyed being a TA for 2 years for ISD4. The third year, unfortunately, I graduated early, so that was one of the bad things that I would count towards graduating early, is that I couldn't TA the third year for ISD4. So ISD4 really made a big impact. So now I'm an assistant professor at Caltech, so I'm back at my alma mater. And I always think about Shuki's philosophy and teaching when I also teach my classes. So also another thing, I started here in 2008, so unfortunately I missed Shuki being the faculty in residence at Avery, where I was. But I'm currently the faculty in residence at Bechtel, and it actually, it kind of reminds me, listening to all these stories about the amazing times Shuki had as faculty in residence, how much effort that is. Because like as a faculty in residence now, organizing events and connecting with undergrads, it's not easy thing to do on top of all the things that professors do. So I have a lot of respect of what Shuki has established in terms of teaching and mentoring undergrads, and I can definitely say that he really brings the passion in teaching and mentoring. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone again. I'm David. I'm a faculty at UC Santa Cruz. I have one amazing thing about Shuki that I don't think anyone has mentioned yet, which is that Shuki is probably a very sound sleeper. Because Shuki lived in our dorm for 2 years, and his bed was right next to my bed, separated by a wall, maybe this thin. We used to have study parties in my room late into the night, and one friend would often get really excited and start shouting and pounding on the wall. And another friend, Neil, would be like, Cherry, you're waking up Shuki. So I finally have the chance to find out, Shuki, did we ever wake you up? No, okay. So, great. Well, besides waking up Shuki at night, I also TA'd for ISD4. I worked with Shuki as a leader in Avery House, and I did research with Shuki. I'm just going to focus on the research aspect. I remember working with Shuki felt so freeing. I remember the first time I presented in a group meeting. It was maybe just 2 weeks into the summer. I had made some small progress, and he was like, wow, I guess you can sleep for the rest of the summer. And then another summer, I just came back from a 3-week trip to Cambodia. I made some breakthrough. I presented in a group meeting, and he was like, I guess what we learned is that we should all take more vacations. There are so many times I'd go into meetings with him so discouraged, having made no progress. He'd listen to me ramble about my scratch work. He'd say, wow, you did so much. And I'd leave so encouraged, and then suddenly make a breakthrough the next day. Very, very often. So I fell in love with research. I bugged him a ton about, is it possible to have kids during grad school? Because I really wanted a big family. I went to grad school. I had 2 kids during my PhD. I now have 3. And I run the Tech for Good lab. As you can see the logo. So Shuki has impacted me in quite a few ways. And a big part of starting my lab actually involved making some crazy decisions, big risks, like moving to a completely new field when starting my faculty job, involving a lot of undergraduate students in my lab, trying to increase opportunities for experiential learning, things that I would never have done if I listened to all the other voices about what you should do pre-tenure, what you shouldn't do, if it weren't for the pure intrinsic curiosity and passion-focused mindset that I caught from Shuki. So we made really quick intros, and I have now a question that I'm asking everyone to answer. But to understand that, we have to watch a 1-minute clip from Shuki's TEDx talk on teaching the past, dreaming the future.
Okay, the challenge for the next 50 years. I think we need to go back to the basic. I think we need to teach people that it's fun. I think we need to teach people to ask simple questions. I think we need to focus on our collective ignorance and together try to think about new ideas. And I think we need to discover education motivated by curiosity and natural passion. And I have the Caltech logo here. It's a special logo. You see one hand handing the fire to the other hand. The fire represents what you believe in, what you love. The fire can be your value system, your knowledge, your jokes, your lame jokes, anything that you want to pass. And I have one request for you today. This is a homework for all of you. It's not mandatory, of course, but go home and think about it over the weekend. The question is, you are holding the fire. You're holding the fire. Think, what is the fire that you want to pass to the next generation? What is it? Thank you very much.
TEDx talk. You have to watch it. It has everything. It has the Babylonians. It has simple questions, jokes, lame jokes. Okay, so here's the question for the panelists. What is a story or memory of Shuki that has had a deep impression on you and captures some of the fire that Shuki has passed on to you and that you might pass to the audience? Caleb?
All right. I guess first, are we abiding with this time limit? Because we each have like 10 seconds. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to breeze. 30 seconds each. Okay, we're going to breeze through some stuff. A lot of people have told stories of Shuki recruiting them. We've had one story of someone rejecting Shuki temporarily. But I got to sit on the other side once, which was when Shuki was applying to be faculty in residence in Avery. And luckily, it was, I looked it up. I found some emails with my sister, and we talked about how it was pretty much unanimous that everyone wanted Shuki and Anat. I want to also say that like we cannot talk about these two, like about Shuki being a faculty in residence in Avery without talking about Anat, because, yeah. Just doesn't exist. So, but I want to talk about how they showed up, as Christina said, whole selves. This is them at Avery Formals, hosting dessert nights in their apartment. If you look at the shoe picture on the right, it just shows you like how many people came to their apartment for the dessert nights. They didn't just come to the special occasions, though. They came every night to dinner as much as they could. But they also were goofy. Can you go back one? This is Shuki inviting us all to dessert night or maybe desert night. Come and find out. And so we have a camel. And that makes a lot of sense, right? In the special mind of Shuki. There's also another email where he says, do you want to find out how many calories are in the whole of a bagel? Come and find out. Your favorite TA, Shuki. So this is, even after they left the house, they kept being very, very involved, as Christina already mentioned. This is Anat hosting us for Ditch Day in 2009. You can see she got fully in character. We were the Brothers Grimm. She also cooked for us, let us fall asleep, and then, even years and years and years after, Shuki and Anat came to graduations, came to weddings for multiple different students who were in Avery at the time. So I think, to me, what this says is that beyond everything else, right, the flame that you were passing on to us was that everyone has inherent intrinsic value as a person, the science all aside. And yeah, I think that's perhaps the most valuable torch that you could pass on to us.
I guess the one story I'll share was from IST4. I will always remember this one. Is a classmate of mine fell asleep in the class, and he was sitting literally in the front row, in the front seat. And Shuki, when he noticed it, he very simply said, "Oh, he must have been very tired. I'm glad he got some rest. I'm sure he really needed it." And it just shows, Shuki, he just had, saw each person and the humanness of each person and the goodness in each person. And that really characterized the way he interacted with everyone. And the other one would be in IST4, there's an extra credit question. He always invites us to write an essay on the prompt, everyone has a gift. And that's really captures how, Shuki really believed each person has something valuable to offer. And you feel that every time, in every interaction with Shuki.
So I think I mentioned a lot about Shuki's teaching and how it impacted, me as academic and also, my teaching as I move forward in my career. So it's very clear that he has a passion for teaching, and one of the, and he very cares deeply about undergraduate teaching. One of the things that I remember is being a TA, I wanted to hold office hours in my dorm room, and if you go back to the title slide, actually, there's a picture of my dorm room at like 9 p.m. because that's kind of, what was convenient for the undergrads. And Shuki was like, great, do that. So I was able to hold office hours in my dorm room at 9 p.m. As a TA, and being flexible and being, figuring out, what works best for undergrads. I think, that's something that you really need, people don't really think about, but you really have to, adapt and make sure what audience you're reaching. And I think, Shuki really captured that with the undergrads, and I think that's the story that I wanted to share.
And for me, my story is around humility and a sense of security. I remember when I was putting together my first ISIT slides, I felt like I needed to showcase the results that were significant, that were complex, And Shuki kept on emphasizing simple examples, making sure people understood the big ideas, the intuition. And so we kept cutting things, adding simple things. In the end, the presentation was just, the most basic model, some examples, and at the end, there was a single slide that said, by the way, we also did all of these other things. And he always said, if people are interested, they'll read the paper. Make sure that they can understand. And I wish that more people did that with the presentation, so I wouldn't always be lost at conferences. But yeah, he didn't try to put on a show to impress other people. Thank you, Shuki, for all your inspiration to us.